I wanted to bring something to your attention that's not gotten a lot of attention. There's a Senate vote tomorrow on a United Nations Disabilities Treaty that will showcase a long-standing divide between two wings of the Republican Party, internationalists who support the effort and isolationists who lead the opposition. With me now are two advocates for this treaty, former U.S. Attorney General and Pennsylvania Republican Governor Dick Thornburgh, and lifelong advocate for disability rights, Ted Kennedy Jr. He's also founder and president of the Marwood Group. Mr. Thornburgh, let me start with you. Explain what this treaty is and why it's important for you, and make your case for why it's important the United States to sign onto it internationally.
Chuck, basically this treaty extends to some 650 million people with disabilities around the world the rights and opportunities guaranteed by our Americans with Disabilities Act. That's the model. And it's important to maintain America's leadership position in this important human rights issue. And it's important for us to continue to be a role model for nations around the world who are not providing the opportunities and guaranteeing the rights of people with disabilities within their borders.
Mr. Kennedy, like all treaties, this has to be ratified by the United States Senate. You need I believe, 2/3.
That's correct.
To get this ratified, more than the 60, so you need 66 votes here. Explain some of the opposition and what of the opposition's opinions on this do you understand and are trying to sort of push back gently on?
Well, first, let me just say it's terrific to be on your show, Chuck. I appreciate you drawing attention to this issue, which is a watershed moment in the area of disability human rights. And I'm thrilled to be here with my longtime friend, Governor Dick Thornburgh, with whom I've worked on disability rights issues for over 25 years. Unfortunately, this issue, by the way, it does enjoy broad bipartisan support, voted out of the Foreign Relations Committee 13-6. We always knew it was going to be a close vote because it's caught up in UN politics. And I think if you took a vote in the United States Senate to abolish the United Nations, you would have, unfortunately, we're wrapped up in this. But really what we're talking about is ensuring that people with disabilities are afforded the same rights and opportunities as everyone else. And I agree with Governor Thornburgh that we cannot abandon our post as the leader, worldwide leader on this important issue. It'll send a terrible signal to the world that we're not up to this. And I think that we have that moral issue that I think people understand. And that's why we're grateful that so many Republicans have joined with so many Democrats in really what should be a nonpartisan issue. I think it could send a terrible signal to the world that we're mired in a partisan political gridlock, and that's not what disability rights has been all about.
You know, Mr. Thornburgh, I look at the divide of the Republicans who are for this treaty. John McCain, John Barrasso, Jerry Moran. These are people that are in the United States Senate known as internationalists, if you will. It's the newer folks, people like Mike Lee, Marco Rubio, Jim DeMint, Jim Inhofe, Pat Toomey, who are against this. And I know Mike Lee, a senator from Utah, he claims this undermines U.S. sovereignty and would internationalize domestic policy.
I think opponents of the treaty, Chuck, either misunderstand or choose to misrepresent what it's about. This is a treaty that gives the UN no authority over the United States or our citizens. It requires no new legislation. It requires no change in existing legislation. It doesn't require a single cent in appropriations to support its enactment. What it does do, the ratification of it, would ensure that we maintain a leadership role worldwide in this important human rights area. And that, for us to relinquish that, would send a terribly negative signal, not only around the world, but to our own citizenry who support and are engaged in enacting the guarantees of the Americans with Disabilities Act.
Mr. Kennedy, how many countries have ratified this treaty?
There's over 125 who've been
that have already ratified.
That have already ratified, including countries like China. That are not really known for their human rights, being in the vanguard of human rights, including many of our staunchest allies around the world. But let me just say this, Chuck. This treaty has been endorsed by over 21 of the leading veterans groups in the United States, including the VFW, the American Legion, the Wounded Warriors Project, and as well as the Chamber of Commerce. Okay, who understand that this is good for American business. Why? We've made tremendous investments in our country to enhance opportunities for people with disabilities. We're asking the rest of the world to come up to the U.S. standard. There's going to be tremendous opportunities for U.S. businesses to sell wheelchairs, medical devices, technical know-how. Those are all in the purview of the United States, companies doing business in the United States. So this is a tremendous opportunity, and not only is it good for business in the United States, but it affords the same rights to U.S. citizens when they travel abroad than they have here at home.
Hey, Mr. Thornburg, is there any way legally, you were former Attorney General, you would know this, is there companies that would somehow be concerned that they would be come under international law? I mean, is that what some of these senators are arguing when it comes to
They're arguing
sovereignty?
that, I think, but it's a fallacious argument, and it misrepresents what this convention is about. The fact of the matter is that most American companies are subject to the Americans with Disabilities Act with regard to their operations, and this treaty would add no new requirements to what these companies are already subject to in the U.S. So it's a kind of a shell game that's going on here with regard to what's required by the Act.
If there's as many, Mr. Kennedy, as 34 or 35 Republican senators opposing this treaty, would you rather Harry Reid postpone this vote and kick it to the next Senate at this point if it can't pass now?
Well, I'll leave that up to Majority Leader Reid. I think he wouldn't have scheduled this vote unless he thought that there was an excellent chance that it would pass. We know what we have our work cut out in the next 24 hours. And Chuck, we're making calls to senators in every single office on Capitol Hill. This is a bipartisan issue. This treaty was initially negotiated by George Herbert Walker Bush. We've enjoyed tremendous bipartisan support. There's no reason in the world why we can't pass this treaty in the United States Senate tomorrow.
To be totally cynical here, Mr. Thornburg, if this did not have the words United Nations in it, if it had just an international treaty on disabilities, would it have a better
Chuck,
chance?
I worked at the United Nations, and I know it's far from perfect, and I think there is a kind of an anti-United Nations feeling in certain quarters of our country.
You just see the name, and it makes some folks just run away.
Well, that's foolish, however. I think you've got to look at the substance of what this treaty provides, match it with what our commitment is under the Americans with Disabilities Act, and when you do that, it's a no-brainer.
Dick Thornburg, former Republican Attorney General, Republican Governor of Pennsylvania. Ted Kennedy, Jr., nice to see you. Thank you both for being on and for your work on this issue. We'll be following it.
Thank you, Chuck.